show me again the power of spoiler in time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoiler in Time. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me is Brian Brushwood. Today we are going to spoil The Expanse, Episode 1, 100 Eyes, the Marco Polo special from Netflix, and probably for the last time, talk about Star Wars The Force Awakens. But Brian, we got to talk about it again because we got a special guest.
Dude, yeah, no, it's to talk about the rage awakening against people who want to smack talk J.J. Abrams. We have Riley Blanton of the Star Wars Report. Thank you so much, Riley, for joining us.
We're just getting started.
Well, let's get started by looking at the winter movie draft that Brian's about to win.
I don't know. I got downgraded, Tom.
What?
If I was a stock, then I was riding high on enthusiasm. But Crumdum, the Diamond Club predictor of note, said that he named you as most likely to win, and says that I will come up just $4 million shy by the time the clock runs out.
Let me tell you what. I think he's wrong, because when the fifth wave scores 300 million and outpaces them all, and Malango wins this, we'll all have egg.
Oh, you think so? You think the fifth wave is just waiting on that hype machine to kick
and that
in?
Oscar buzz for The Revenant isn't going to hurt Ibit.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, Ibit and Malango are so very, very far behind the two of us. Right now, you're sitting at $671 million. I'm at $609 million. That's a delta of what? $62 million between us, which means I assume you're going to get a little bit more money from Daddy's Home. Basically, I got 1 month, I got 4 weeks to have Star Wars somehow wring out another $100 million of blood from that stone. I don't know that I'm going to do it.
Here's why
I'm going to say it's going to be a close game. It will be a very, very close game.
Before we appeal to Riley, the arbiter of how much Star Wars will make, I want to tell you why I think, my unscientific reason why I think you're going to win this, Brian, is today, Veronica Belmont was on Daily Tech News Show with me and was talking about how busy her week is and these unexpected 2-day shoot that she's got coming up, and then said, plus I'm going to see Star Wars tomorrow night.
Yes.
It's just it's just like the most normal thing in the world to go see the movie a second, third, fourth time.
She has no time for anything, but she is making time to go see Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
In mid-January.
Y'all, poll around the room. Who has a family member or a friend who hasn't seen it that it wants to see it with you? Or at least that was the case.
Oh, yeah. No, that's definitely, I definitely took and I'll probably go see it a third time, taking my middle daughter.
I don't have the article in front of me. It was forwarded to me by one of my many Star Wars friends. But there's something akin to 60-75% of these tickets are third time viewing or higher. It's just going second and third and fourth time viewings are just holding strong. And this last weekend was 42 million. It's just this past weekend. So it's still going strong. It's averaging $5 to $10 million on weekdays, at least last week. So if that trend just kind of continues nice and steady and doesn't drop off for any reason, you're more than safe, Brian. So congratulations.
We went to a Thursday showing last week. That was my fourth time seeing it. And coming out of the theater, there were people talking about it as if they had not seen it before. They were saying oh, I was really surprised when this and that happened. I was like, wow, those people definitely had not seen it before. That's crazy.
No, absolutely. And that's the great thing. If it's a good Star Wars movie it has many aspects, but probably the most key one is the ability to go watch it again and again. And this definitely has that magic. And the box office speaks to that.
So as long as we're on the subject of Star Wars, what's up? Can you give me some insight, what it is about internet culture that just means now that we all generally say we like a thing, now there has to be a wave of people that want to take it to task? What's with George Lucas being a troll? What is going on here?
What a role reversal! Who would have seen it coming?
Yeah, right.
Other than anyone who's seen interviews with George Lucas in the last 5-10 years. Star Wars is in such a weird place, and we in my little internet Star Wars world, we talk about this stuff so much, but I think broadly speaking, the reaction to this film has been kind of unexpected for a lot of people when it comes to the 2-3 week mark as the conversation really starts in earnest about this film. And there's sort of in the blogosphere, in certain specific parts of the internet that we all traverse regularly, there's something about being the first across that finish line of being the one that finds the plot holes. And I'm not even like a lot of these articles that seem negative aren't. Like they start with, well, I really loved the movie, but let's be honest. And then the following narrative is, let's find what's wrong with the film. And I think that kind of rubs folks the wrong way in some ways who just enjoyed a good Star Wars movie for the first time in a long time. And as a kid of the prequel era, I say to you, gentlemen, welcome to my world.
Yeah. By the way, I had an epiphany, and it was talking with you that I realized it, where it's like, hey man, like you were trying to explain how it's possible to have a deep affection for the prequels, but also acknowledge that they're not good movies. And then I realized, like, oh wait, that's Tron. Like, I love Tron. I love everything about Tron. It's a bad movie. But I will watch it a million times over. Thank you for bringing me that level of healing to my prequels experience.
Well, and thank you for putting a human face on those who have crapped on the films of which I loved so many times as I was 12 and was cheering for Darth Maul's double-sided lightsaber. It's so cool. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's nostalgia, and it just proves, if nothing else, and I think I love the fact that The Force Awakens has, I think, spawned more conversation of this type, and that is the prequels, for all of their flaws, are set in a universe that is so incredible. There's an entire generation of kids, including myself and younger, that just fell in love with the universe through those films. And regardless of what your opinion is about the one way or the other, I love the fact of it's just a gorgeous, beautiful cinematic universe that I cannot wait to return to this year, because we get more Star Wars films
this year. Well, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and call it. This is the underplayed thing. I guarantee you. I honestly think I'm going to make a bet, stake bet, Tom, because I don't owe you enough stakes already. Rogue One's going to be the best Star Wars movie, because here's the only criticisms against episode we're on 7 now, 7, were that it was too much like episode 4, and but there was a reason for that. We had to go through this healing process. We kept it all, as George Lucas complained, retro, because we had to kind of wash our hands of the prequels. This is our first true blank slate movie, Star Wars, where we got talented, competent directors, and I think it's going to be so good, because the best parts of the Star Wars universe for me have never been the mysticism of the Force or the process of trade route taxes or whatever. It's been the dirty, filthy, lived in, gritty world, and that's all of it. It's going to be an amazing heist movie. I can't wait.
I'm tempted to want to agree with you. But here's the thing. It definitely has a chance to be a better movie than The Force Awakens for all the reasons you just said. So then to be a better movie, it has to beat The Empire Strikes Back, which is widely considered, and you may disagree, but widely considered to be the best of the 6 before The Force Awakens, and probably still considered to be the best of the 7. I don't know if it can, because it is only being on that aspect, and the people who love the other aspects may not love it as much. And that's one of the appeals of the Star Wars universe in total, is that it appeals to so many different types of people at once who can find different things in it. If you do a heist movie, can you say Ocean's 11 is like a greater movie than The Dark Knight? I don't know.
And the thing is, if I would just to toss in a small monkey wrench, one thing that we have to keep in mind here in terms of Disney's ownership is that they very intentionally not marketed this film at all. Like, nobody knows about this movie outside of the movie blog Rabid Fanboy.
Yeah, what's up? They don't even have a trailer for it in front of the new Star Wars movie.
Is brilliant, because if you do, you set up the expectations that this is the follow-up to episode 7 and therefore must be as good as Empire Strikes Back. Exactly Tom's point. Whereas what they're going to be doing is the marketing machine is going to attach the trailer to Captain America Civil War. That's the rumors right now, which is a brilliant move, because what was the last Captain America film? It was a great spy movie. It was
Yeah.
also a Marvel movie, but it was a great spy movie. So here we have a Star Wars movie that's also a great heist movie. So I think that what they have a really careful line to walk, to delineate this film from the episodic films, which is why they changed the tagline from Star Wars Anthology that lasted for like 3 months to the marketing is now Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
And I think they were very sensitive not to take anything away from The Force Awakens. They didn't want to be marketing this movie before The Force Awakens was out, which is probably because I had the same thought, Brian. I'm like, why aren't you teasing me for the next one before this one? And I think that was it. It's like, you know what? Let's just get this one out there with unadorned. And now what they can do is say, hey, when you go see Rogue Squadron, you'll get the full trailer for the coming May movie of Episode 8, which will be huge.
Yeah, no, I'm very optimistic. I think that in general, Disney has proven themselves to be extraordinarily good stewards of established properties. I think they know they force difficult conversations where people have to give up, their favorite parts of the movie. It's like, well, I'm sorry, this line tests better. Everyone agrees that this is a cleverer way to do it. We've seen it with the Marvel universe. We're seeing it again with the Star Wars universe, and I'm thrilled. I'm very, very excited.
The rumor today is that they actually want to cast Han Solo for the anthology movie about a young Han Solo before they're done with principal photographer, or done with all of the things for Rogue One, so they can put a cameo of him in there.
Yeah, no, that's the way they think, man. They're all like, they look at this like a chess game. They're thinking 5 moves ahead and setting up. Look, these guys create magic for a living. That's what they do.
We should do a Star Wars podcast.
Okay, all
I think
right.
we're accidentally doing your podcast, sort of, right now.
Yeah. Speaking of which, where can people see more of you, Riley, real quick? Because I know you got to head out here.
Yeah, just head over to StarWarsReport.com, and then if you want to get some Brian Brushwood awesomeness of that, just slash Cordkiller, StarWarsReport.com/Cordkillers, and that'll take you to all the links and stuff. If you like Star Wars, check out the Star Wars Report. And gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. This is a blast.
Absolutely,
yeah, it was
dude.
fantastic. Thanks for being on.
Yes, and I have to come back and be on Star Wars Report again. Please have me back.
It will be done.
Okay.
It will be done. I'll see you, gentlemen. Enjoy
All right.
spoiling The Expanse. I'm going to, and just small preview.
Yeah.
Brian's convinced me to watch it.
By the way, before you leave, I will say just type in The Expanse on Google and it'll take you to sci-fi.com. They've got the first 5 episodes, all commercial free in my experience. I guess I have ad blocker installed, but you don't. I didn't have to validate nothing with a cable thing, and it's all easy to watch. Jump in on that.
Let it begin.
Yeah.
I'll see you, gentlemen.
And so it begins. One of the reasons I'm glad that I did pay for a season pass for The Expanse is you get these awesome extras. And I don't know if they might have them streaming on sci-fi.com too. I haven't checked. But they're interviews with the cast, interviews with the producers, interviews with the authors of the books, Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. And I'm such a fan of the books that I want to find out a little bit more about the thinking that went into changes and stuff like that. So that's really cool. But I believe we're going to talk about 100 Eyes first, right?
Yeah. Okay. So where was your hype meter at? Like, you and I took on this assignment with all the enthusiasm of a book report. It's like, I guess we'll promise to watch 100 Eyes.
I tell you what, I was hopeful because 100 Eyes was one of 3 or 4 characters that I loved from Marco Polo.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, I'm kind of excited about seeing more 100 Eyes. Let's just hope they don't blow it. And I don't think they did.
No, not at all. It was great. It's not like. So here's the surprise to me. I thought it was going to be the story of like how 100 Eyes became a badass, but it turns out he was always a badass. He was a badass who it was the perfect one-off episode because he is a badass. He has a setback. He trains his way out of it and is left on the other side with his integrity intact. He's bossing around Kublai Khan's kid, or is it his child? Is that who it is? Or his cousin? Or I forget who the kid is he's teaching.
Well, yeah, I think he's the one that grows up to be the heir that's always accused of being too Chinese.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember the name.
But it was astonishing. And what's funny is there's this brief moment where they do some really good, kung fu action sequence. And it hit me. I was like, this was my complaint when we were watching Marco Polo to begin with, is that there's a lot of talking about what's happening off screen, and I'm sure some of that is budgetary concerns or whatever. And but you have some shows that manage that pretty well, like Game of Thrones does a good job of, they hold off of showing, because they, again, budgetary, it's very expensive to shoot those giant sweeping things. So they give it to you every so often. But Game of Thrones does a good job where it's not so obvious that they're hiding something from you. Whereas Marco Polo, especially as we got to the end of the big climactic battle, they just showed us a painting and they described all the awesome stuff that's happening off screen. Having that brief moment of watching 100 Eyes kick a lot of ass was so refreshing. It was a bit of a letdown to immediately follow it up with like, oh, now we're back in the room where people talk to each other, and we're back to that version of the show.
I was going into this thinking, well, it's only 28 minutes, right? Like I sat down with that feeling of it won't take too much time away from my days, and it is 100 Eyes. I was done, and I said I wanted more. Like this, you're right. It's not an origin story in that we don't find out how 100 Eyes became as good as he did, but it is an origin story, or better yet, it felt like a pilot to me. Like, yeah. I want to see the next episode. This kicked off the story of 100 Eyes. He was an amazing master of martial arts. He was captured by Genghis Khan, or by Kublai Khan, rather, and he lost his sight. And if I watch Marco Polo, that's interesting. It's like, oh, that's how he lost his sight. But to me, if I'm not watching that, pretend I'm dumb about 100 Eyes, it's like, oh, crap, what's he going to do? How's he going to recover? And then he starts to come back. I want to know his story next. I want to be like, well, what adventures does he go on? How is he able to deal with this new adversity? And will he continue to get better? Will he get back to as good as he was when he had his eyes? That's the story I want to see.
It also, it's a testament to the story, or to the writers and to the way the execution, that somehow they make us like Kublai Khan, in that it almost feels just, if regrettable, that he does things like blind someone or break the wing of a bird because he needs it to stay in there. Like, it's a harsh world, and he's just, like, well, this is unfortunate. Now I have to blind you. And then for some reason I'm along for the ride. I'm like, hey man, Dad's got to blind you. It's kind of messed up. I'm sorry, 100 Eyes.
Well, and frankly, I kind of looked at it as, wow, they told me so much more about Kublai Khan in these couple of scenes than they did the entire season 1 of Marco Polo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, I get him. He wants to be friendly, but he's not going to pull any punches when he needs to. It's so good. Like I feel like we talked about this a little bit before we actually did the show. I feel like hindsight's 2020, right? Backseat driver right here. But if they had come out with like, hey, we've got this great Kung Fu series coming to Netflix about this master named 100 Eyes, everybody would have been super excited. There's shows based on more of a niche than that already on Netflix. I think it would have been a huge hit. Do 2 seasons of it, and then have Marco Polo show up. Like, oh, look at that little historical crossover. That's kind of cool, but so much more enjoyable for me.
Keep in mind, Marco Polo is, I believe, one of the 10. It was a top 10 Rotten Tomatoes pick, right? Like, people loved it. Like you and I are in the minority by feeling like we had to plow through it. Most people really seem to dig it, and it seems to be a big win for Netflix. So maybe we're just wrong on this one.
Well, and I maintain that you're never wrong about your opinion about something. I thought it was boring at times. I'm not wrong. I just thought it was boring. That's like saying when I say I'm hungry, you're like, no, you're not. You're wrong. You are hungry. Like, no, man, I just, but that doesn't mean that you are wrong for liking it if you did. It just didn't work for me as well. It's gorgeous. That was part of the reason I was able to plow through, is like, well, I'm just going to enjoy the scenery. It's like being in a long car ride. It's like, oh, at least I got something nice to look at out the window.
Yeah, I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes right now, and this is so amazing to me. Among critics, Marco Polo has 24%, an astonishingly poor rating, but the audience score is at 92%.
Wow.
That's
a selection bias at work. That big of a gap.
Yeah, right?
Like the people who didn't like Marco Polo didn't bother to go rate it.
Yeah. Crazy talk. So at any rate, but regardless,
when you said crazy, I suddenly had a brilliant thought.
yeah.
Next Netflix crossover, 100 Eyes meets Crazy Eyes.
But it's a situation comedy, right? Yeah. Where it's like he's all like
he's a blind kung fu master out of his time. She's just out on parole.
Yeah.
Marco Polo is the new black.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to The Expanse, episode 1. I will let you lead, Brian, because I cannot be objective about this, mostly because I just adore every book, and I'm looking at this TV series and seeing characters come alive on screen and doing it in a way that's not screwing it up, and so I'm enjoying it. I have a few nitpicks, but I'll let you go first. Tell me what you think.
Yeah,
of this
well, it's weird because I'm sort of at a loss to talk about the characters because I don't really feel connected to any of them yet.
Sure.
But I can talk about the way they're pitching the world, and the world I really believe. I like the fact that they're making the effort to remind you of little things like gravity is different, not in a big way that you notice. Like they don't go out of their way to make literally every step be a bounce, which is what it would be in a light gravity world. But you do see things like people grab someone, they fling their body across, and they fall from great heights without really being damaged. You see birds bothering to flap their wings only once every 5 seconds or so, and all of that makes it feel like a believable lived-in world. Dude, Mike Ehrmantraut, that dude's immortal. Lives forever, and shows up in Jonathan Banks, the actor. It was great seeing him. I like the fact that they held off in the first episode from exposing me to the Martians. I guess I don't know if they call them Martians or not, but the Mars faction. I like the fact that it's a very practical world. I like the fact that the Earth, grandmother, the Indian mother, you see her instantly go from shrugging off having, I would say, a fairly significant infraction when a kid runs into the living room and throws a water balloon and smashes it, and it rolls off of her, and she's like, "Hey, whatever, I'm tickling you," and then she turns around and continues her torture of somebody from a
belter.
The belter,
the asteroid belt.
I'm very, very optimistic is all I want to say. The acting is a little bit soft. I think the acting was so good in Battlestar Galactica. Like there's a gravitas to all of the heavy hitters on that show that I'm not seeing here yet. But on the strength of the world that they're building, I'm still 100% in.
Well, who knows what kind of budgetary constraints and tricks they had to pull. But the one thing that you can see that they didn't do was hire a big name star, right? There's no Edward James Olmos leading the pack here. So it may be that these actors are going to grow into these characters as the actors get to know them more, and we'll start to feel a little bit more of that gravitas as it goes along. But I'm really glad that the world's appeal is coming through to you after just this 1.5 episodes, because that's one of the things that caught me in Leviathan Wakes, which is the first book by James S.A. Corey, is that he would do things like, respect the fact that deceleration and acceleration are not necessary all the time. You got to do reverse burns. It takes a long time at actually physical practical speeds to go from the Earth to the asteroid belt. You can't just jump there at warp speed. No tricks like that. And in fact, Ty Frank, who is half of the two authors who make up James S.A. Corey, defended in an email to Sword and Laser some criticisms of some of the physics. He's like, look, we are not trying to do hard sci-fi, but we are trying to respect reality. So here's how we calculated how long it takes to get from here to there. Here's how we calculated when you have to start your deceleration burns and your acceleration burns. And that's the kind of thing you're not going to get treated as much explanation in the TV show, right? Because it doesn't make good TV, but you'll feel it in the background. It sounds like you're starting to feel it a little already.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind also, it's like you kind of have kid gloves when it comes to the science on television. Television, like for the from a practical standpoint, you just don't have time to explain all that stuff. And, we're accustomed to loud explosions in space and all these things that are wrong, So it's like the mere fact, and again, I don't understand what it is where there's some amount of scientifically literate fans of science fiction where the harder a movie or a television show tries to get the science right, the more they feel this need to needle at it. We saw it with
Well,
Gravity.
it's like they attract their attention, right? If you don't try to get it right, they just ignore you.
Yeah.
It's like the eye of Sauron. As soon as you try to get it right, it's like putting on the One Ring. The attention just gets focused.
Yeah, well, and I don't understand it. It's like, look, they're trying. They're getting closer
But they didn't do
than
it
there's
right.
ever been. Yeah, and so good. I'm thrilled that they're making that effort and going in that direction.
And man, I don't know how much more I can ask you about without knowing exactly. Because I can't remember exactly what's in episode 1, but I know that the characters in the books already know each other a little better. And in one of the behind the scenes interviews, they talked about how they made a conscious choice to have these characters not know each other as well so that they could get to know each other along with you as the shows progress. So I think you'll see that coming. You'll get to know the other factions a little better, certainly the Belters, and you'll get to see a little section of Mars as well. And the best part is I think we're 5 episodes in as far as what's been released, and we haven't even got to what I consider to be the most important part of the story yet, which is
awesome.
Kind of awesome.
Can I give an unfair compliment that, I don't know, makes me some kind of body shaming person?
Sure.
I don't know if there's a plot point, but that this is significant. But I thought it was interesting that the captain is kind of a dumpy, doughy guy, schlubby, and again, like that's usually, he looks like Sala from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
That's not normally what you expect from a captain, which I don't know if that's code for he's disposable and we're about to see him die, next episode or something. But I loved that there were surprises and that stuff felt real in that regard. Like, yeah, in real life, they don't measure your waist before they cast you as the captain of a ship.
Well, and frankly, one of my nitpicks, and this is a total nitpick, it's not even a criticism, is that everyone that I know from the books is a little better looking than I imagined they should be in the TV show, because they cast actors who tend to be better looking people than the rest of us.
Sure.
And so, Holden's not as road weary as I thought he would be. Naomi looks a little bit slimmer than maybe I thought she should be. Although when the first trailer came out, I said something about Miller, who's the detective on series. And I like, wow, he's a lot thinner than I expected him to be. And Ty Frank actually answered me on Twitter. He's like, he's a belter. And I'm like, oh, right. Because they grow up in lower gravity.
Yeah.
They don't bulk up like Earth people. And so your point about the captain being chunkier, it's like that's kind of showing like, hey, he's an Earth guy. Like, check him out.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't even think about that. Okay. No, this is great. This has me even more excited. If there is that level of attention to detail and thought going into the backstory of characters, that's very, very encouraging going into this.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We will probably continue, it sounds like, to talk about The Expanse. Brian, what do you want to do? When do you want to start Justified?
I guess we better start earlier rather than later, because
unlike The Shield, I can't just do it on my own. We got to be in sync on this one.
Yeah. Well, you tell me, man. When you feel that urge, you fire off a text.
I could probably start it off this weekend. Just do one a week, just so we always have one in the back pocket.
I wouldn't mind doing an accelerated schedule. You want to start with 2 a week or just?
I just like the rhythm of it, because then I don't have to stress about.
Okay.
Like, oh wait, is Brian going to be able to have time this week? Like, I feel like we can always squeeze in one.
Well, I've watched the first 3 or 4, so even if you get ahead, I'll be fine. But let's feel free to to dive in if you feel the spirit move you.
All right, sounds good. So at least one Justified. I'm going to commit to that. And you can rake me over the coals when I fail.
Done.
Next week. And we will spoil the rest of everything next week. All of the shows. Goodbye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.